It's Thursday, March 9th, 2023. Today's tip comes from the book Winning Case Preparation, Understanding Jury Bias. One of the main authors of that book, David Wenner, is here with us today. Good morning, David.
Good morning to you, Michael. It's good to see you. So the tip today, blaming the plaintiff is natural, almost reflexive behavior. Early jury research is the time to explore which of your facts will best redirect jurors' attention to the defendant's conduct that actually caused the harm. And this was really important to our early jury bias research, because one of our five biases was blame the plaintiff. And I should say, just briefly, we had two parts to this model, overcoming jury bias model. One was a very descriptive model, and one was a prescriptive, what should be done about these biases. The first part, the descriptive part, was the kinds of biases we were seeing in these focus groups across the country. And one of them was that there was this tendency to blame the plaintiff. And I think it's a natural tendency, and I think it's also the product at that time of a lot of tort reform rhetoric, which is probably a little less now than it was then, or a lot less now than it was then. But still, there is a blame the plaintiff bias, and the reason is that most of the time that the jurors have an easier time relating to how the plaintiff would behave than how a trucking company would behave, or how a doctor would behave, how a products manufacturer would behave, and so for that reason, they tend to say, okay, if you're going to evaluate this, what could I control in this setting? And so the thing they could control is their own conduct. And so there'd be this tendency to blame the plaintiff, and there was names for it. The defensive attribution, it was called. And, the I think the psychological reason is that if something bad happens to the plaintiff, people want to say, well, that wouldn't happen to me, because if that would have been me, I would have done something that prevented that conduct. And so that natural tendency, psychological tendency to blame the plaintiff was there. So the question was, how do we minimize the impact of that? And one of the things that we did was to identify personal responsibility as an issue of minimizing or mitigating the blaming the plaintiff. If you showed that the plaintiff was personally responsible in trying to control for the risk, they got a second opinion, they read the instructions, things that jurors would think that they would do. And remember, when jurors are evaluating the conduct, they don't say, how have I behaved? They say, how do I behave? I mean, how should I behave to prevent the outcome? And that's very, very different. So in this setting, without going on too much, the question is, how do you control for the blaming of the plaintiff? And we came up with a number of different ways to do that. But be advised that there is that tendency to blame the plaintiff and to focus on the plaintiff because of these natural psychological principles, and not wanting to live in a risky world in which bad things can happen.
Well, on the whole, in the liability part of the case, at least, if the plaintiff's lawyer is doing their job, they're focusing on the defendant's conduct. And if the defense lawyer is doing their job, they're focusing on the plaintiff, right?
That's right. But, when we first started this, I mean, people would start their opening statement in a case where there was comparative fault. And even in the tort reform era, where there wasn't a comparative fault, people would want to focus on the plaintiff, and they would start talking about the plaintiff's conduct. And I think based upon our jury research, that changed. And I think the idea was now to focus on the defendant's conduct, really where the focus needs to be.
Great. Well, thank you for being here this morning, David. Thank you for all your wisdom and knowledge over the years.
Very kind. Thank you.
Let's take a deep breath together and appreciate the fact that we are alive this Thursday. May we be grateful for the opportunity of another day to go out and use our efforts, our work as lawyers, as legal professionals, paralegals, or whatever we do in the world to help reduce suffering in the world. May we help repair the world in the work we do today. May we fiercely and compassionately advocate for our clients. May we champion their stories. I'm going to ring a bell 3 times now. This can take you into a meditation practice, a prayer practice, or just remind you it's Thursday. Wake up, go out, do good things, and have fun while you're doing it. Have a great day.